I would like to welcome you to the Friday edition of AM120 on the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State. My name is Jade Sola Ajibola, and of course, this morning on the program, we'll be serving you with stories from the dailies, and then we'll take you through the weather reports, quotes for the day, and of course, interview segment, and we'll wrap it up with sport updates. That's what we're going to be giving to you this morning. Of course, I'll begin with stories from the Nigerian Tribune. And the major story there says uncertainty over Jonathan's links to 2027 presidential contest. Contesting for the presidency is not a computer game. I will consult widely, he says as youths rally at his Abuja residence. Adds that Nigeria has highest voter apathy. Court to hear suit on his eligibility today. All right, let's go to other story. That story is on page 4. Senate rescinds amended standing rule, retains previous provision. That story is on page 27. Billionaire drug baron to female kingpin fall in global string operation as NDLEA used USDA other smash transitional drug network. The story is on page 30. Right, new oxygen gel could help prevent amputations. That's according to scientists. The story is on page 22. Defection hit PDP in Oyo. Aspirant lead exodus. Party member fill APM forms on easy cams over Adekombi as Makine's choice. Owosheni resigns as special advisor on security. All right, we have other stories there. Electoral Act, New Amendment, Block Forum, Shopping, National Assembly, Governorship, pre-election cases to start at Federal High Court, Presidency open at Appeal Court, terminates at Supreme Court. Court convict ex-power minister Asele over 33.8 billion naira fraud. All right, that's a story there. And of course, we'll go to other stories this morning. We'll come to page 2 on NECO WAEC to fully migrate to CBT exam by 2027. FG insists. Shetima charges NECO on innovation, integrity of exam. All right, FG films over harassment of Nigerians in South Africa. Says we can't stand by watch Nigerians being killed. All right, our story is on page 2. All right, other stories on page 3. You have Kwara APC stakeholder back consensus option. Infrastructure investment will drive growth. Ondo Group insists. All right, we'll come to page 4. Re-elect me for continuity of good governance. Oyibanji urges voters. And then we'll come to page 5. On page 5, you have stories. Renewed Hope Network endorses Tinubu for 2027. Amzad for Lagos governorship. I have chosen to remain in ADC. That's coming from Hedioa. That story is there. All right, APC leaders in Oshodi Solo back Ayedun for House of Reps seat. El Rufai dumps APC as 3 other reps members defect to ADC and DC. All right, on page 6, I'm a card-carrying member of APC, never in support of opposition. That's coming from Brutai. And we still have other stories there. Tinubu has rewarded North with massive infrastructure. APC National Chairman said that. Right, we come to the business and economy page. And you have New Pen President commends FG and NPCL partnership with Chinese firm. All right. Let's go to some sell-off in cement. Banking stock, deep markets as market cap sheds 1.92 trillion naira. All right, budget minister urges LGs to lead grassroots development. That story is on page 8. And the editorial story there this morning, tax house builds 22 years after. All right, we'll come to page 10. SK Adetono remembering a quintessential monarch. That story is there. Benway, the quiet reset to bring peace. On the opinion page, Jacopo Mohammed, he's truly a gentleman of the press. Diamond, others say of visionary, a man of all season. All right, on page 12, Oyo government allays fears of herders farmers on enforcement of anti-open grazing law. Reps set up led ad hoc committee on debt-owned federal government. On the Eye of Islam page this morning, Sultan dismisses Islamization, fair task cleric on religious literacy. Right, Muslim community in Oyo urges Makinde to back Muslim governorship candidate. All right, 7, it's Muslims' turn to govern Oyo. That's according to group. Right, Kaduna Pilgrim deserve quality service. That's according to the governor. On the Friday Treat Extra page, I'm ready to take over Nollywood. Sulaiman Sported Ogegbo said that. And let's quickly run through some other stories that this morning on the Arewa page. Saduna Foundation unveils 8-point agenda to rebuild northern Nigeria. UNFPA unveils scholarship for 500 rural girls in Sokoto to boost maternal health care. Our law firm petitioned Gwagwalada local government over delayed payment for completed project. Kebbi wants 2026 pilgrims against misconduct inaugurates committee. Right on page 20, Kaduna UNICEF inaugurate mobile healthcare outreach in Mashi, Gwari. Then on the metro page, IED explosion kills 6 in Zamfara. Police kill 2 suspected kidnappers, arrest 1 in Abuja. Right, Kogi governor confirmed rescue of all abducted Lokoja orphanage victim. Troops eliminate terrorists, nab suspect in nationwide operations. On page 22, Edo government demolished building allegedly linked to kidnapping drug activities. On the Sport Vintage page, Falcons to play in London ahead of WAFCON. That's coming from Sanusi. Why Uche is facing hard times. That's coming from the Palace Bourse. And of course, you have Arsenal ladies coach Ailes Nadozie, portable to perform at NNL Super 4 finals. And of course, fireworkers season enters last lap. Those are the stories this morning we'll be taking from the Nigerian Tribune. Over to you, Victor, for more stories.
Well, I've got the Guardian newspaper right in front of me, and the most interesting one for me are stories that are big on pages 4 and 5. Yes, indeed, the NFF sit-tight syndrome. Our skilled process makes life benchers of football administrators, and of course there is that design rather to illustrate what they are pointing out exactly. Well, away from that story, we have dozens feared killed, villages raised in Kogi communal clash. You find that on news page 29. On page 28, NIMET warns of flash flooding in 19 states. Partners NEMA on action plan. On page 7, ADC commits to court ruling, dissociates from proposed state congresses. And that same page, you have the story. Jonathan, out of 2027, explores options as court fixes today for suits and his eligibility. We also have Nopeng seeks transparency, timely execution as federal government moves to revamp Warri and Port Harcourt refineries. Also on page 6, APC paves Tinubu's 2027 run as opposition battles INEC timelines and lawsuits. And now to page 3, Senate reverses controversial eligibility ruling for presiding officers. We have on that same page, Nigeria protests killings in South Africa as Tinubu orders crisis notification unit. We also have that story on that same page. Reps launch probe into debts owed federal government, rising building material cost. All right, let's flip into what we have in the inside pages of the Guardian newspaper for today. We're on page 2, we have the stories. Shakira unveils official 2026 World Cup song featuring Burna Boy. Red Cross article laments humanitarian crisis over renewed killings. And Dalhatu presents letter of credence to King Charles. And we have some other stories right there. Okay, going on to page 4, the NFF sit-tight syndrome. Our skilled process makes life benchers of football administrators. We find it continue on to page 5. Well, on page 7, we also have an interesting story. Nigeria dumps 3G network as China routes internet traffic via country. I think that's incredible. Also, Army warns personnel against misuse of social media and digital platforms. Now to page 8, where we have the story about windstorm destroying about 1,000 houses across Niger communities. Police arrest 4 suspected drug dealers in Yobe. Disdate over alleged defilement in Rivers. Edo demolishes a building allegedly used by kidnappers. And of course, we have the Swan. Lagosians seek fire trucks on Third Milan Bridge over recurring vehicle fires. On page 9, billionaire drug baron arrested as NDLEA dismantles global laundering network. Police foil truck hijack in Ogun, recover stolen vehicle and wooden rifle. Ekpe farmer seeks and will lose intervention over alleged military takeover of farmlands. Family seeks 11.7 million naira to save Edo toddler battling cancer. NSCDC arrests 210 suspects, recovers 23 million naira for 4 victims in Ogun. And of course, we have more stories right here. Flipping on to what we have on transport and tourism. Lekki Epe Airport to provide viable alternative to MMA. That's a story you find on page 20. You just might want to read up on how they plan to actually do that. Well, we also see on that same page, FAAN prioritizes Nigerian Army in air logistics. Stakeholder calls for urgent sector reforms in transport and tourism on page 21. And also, NRC graduates 86 trainees, boosts rail workforce. All right, we have on page 22, stakeholders harp on agriculture reforms at summit. Weak policies, inconsistent enforcement, discouraging investors. That's what we have on agroeconomy on page 22 today. Now flipping on to what we have on politics and policy. Mba, from consolidation to confrontation in Enugu. You find that on page 24. On Friday worship, they're telling us about sincere admonition for the judge on page 26. And Oloyede warns clerics don't mix partisan politics with Minbar. On page 27, we have this one. Diocese of Lagos urges federal government to tackle insecurity and economic hardship. All right, we go on this commercial break, and when we return, we have more stories from you from the Guardian newspaper.
It's up to architect Bisola and builder Brian to rebuild the city.
We'll need some help. Let's get up and go!
You'll need more Cowbell Choco to complete your mission.
To get up and go, give them Cowbell Choco.
All right, thank you very much for sticking around. Yes, we're still continuing with the Guardian newspaper, where we have on page 28, NIMET warns of flash flooding in 19 states. Partners NEMA on action plan. We also have this one. Enugu denies reports of fatal inferno along highway. And NBA condemns criminalization of civil defamation disputes. We also have stakeholders advocate women's leadership in Nigeria's health sector. All of that on page 28. On page 29, federal government validates 11.5 million NINs as social register, covers 77 million Nigerians. We have this story. Dozens feared killed, villages raised in Kogi communal clash. Insurance reforms, NICOM, police begin crackdown on illegal operators. And federal government task CSOs on small arms weapons proliferation in Northeast. NECO, federal government targets zero malpractice by 2027. Abbas urges reforms integrity drive in examination system. And we have the Swan French Embassy and Nile Varsity launch recycling plants. Now to the Guardian Sports on page 30. NBF expects improved boxing after Ghana friendly. NWF pledges to continue legacy of women's dominance and lift men's wrestling. And we have MPFL threatens to sanction clubs disrupting fixtures. 2026 World Cup, scam economy, booms ahead of first whistle. And we have this one as well, where Arsenal versus PSG Champions League final brings back brutal reminder. And yes, on the back page of The Guardian, We have the 2026 Unity Cup, the Valley Stadium to host Super Eagles and Reggae Boys clash. And of course, we have Nabri, Rodrigo Militao, headline stars expected to miss FIFA World Cup as injuries mount before kickoff. Vavave hospitalized after fight with Dramani. And we have NFF appoints Maikaba with Jamomere Boborize as under 20, under 17 head coaches. And excitement is right there as CAF A coaching convention returns. And that's as much as we can take this morning on the newspaper review segment. Return with the weather reports.
All right, welcome back. It's still AM 120 on the Broadcasting Corporation of your state. Well, now in the interview segment, and this morning we have our guest with us this morning. Our guest that will be doing justice to the conversation on the rising insecurity and 2027 polls. Dr. Shola Ishola, who is a security scholar at the University of Ibadan, the premier university. You're welcome this morning to the program, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good to have you here again.
Thank you.
All right, of course, we have, the reports that as Nigerians edge towards the polls next year, Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Joash Amupiton, has said that the scale of insecurity in several parts of the country is drawing out public confidence, presenting a potent threat to the conduct of free and fair elections. However, the Inspector General of Police, IGP Olatunji Disu, assured the Commission of Nigeria Police readiness to provide a secured environment for the election, warning that there will be no preferential treatment for anyone or party. Amopiton spoke when he paid him a courtesy visit and formally sought his support and collaboration ahead of the 2027 general election. The INEC chairman said thorough security analysis, risk analysis was essential before the election. Of course, Dr. Shalai, as we all know that the election is drawing closer, and whether we like it or not, we need to continue to prepare until we get to the day of the elections. And if there are reports of rising insecurity, I mean, such statement coming from INEC that this could be one of the major things that could prevent public confidence in the credibility of the election that is built to come. What do you think is wrong? Is this a new trend or is it a norm with Nigerian elections?
Well, thank you very much. This is not a new trend, and it appears it has become, like you said, the norm in the kind of build up to elections in our country. It has happened before. For example, in 2023, the pressure was so high at that time that even some people were speculating there probably was not going to be an election. But eventually, we had an election. Okay, so it has become part of the tradition, of pre-election development in our country. And the only thing we are praying that, naturally people will be anticipatory and the rest and the rest. The only thing we pray is that the level of violence does not get beyond the one that INEC will not be able to, to organize the election. You will recall that even in 2015, in the pre-Buhari era, the election has to be suspended for a while for the environment to be settled and for INEC at that time to be able to organize an election. It's the same kind of pressure that was building up, at that time that we are experiencing now. And, by the end of the year, because the election is early next year, by the end of the year, we would have seen clearly the direction that will be going in the polls, and that will determine the outcome of the poll. So I think it's a normal thing.
Okay, well, you say it's a normal thing, but it looks like now the stakes are very much higher than before. And now we can say, somehow, some way, with the spate of events that we've seen, insecurity no longer feels distant to many Nigerians. There was a time when people felt like it was happening far away from them. Now it looks a lot more personal. And, people are asking the question, can we continue to have trust in the way our democracy is with the level of insecurity that we have? The statement coming from some of them. The time you mentioned, I remember that some people would always point out the statement that they would make Nigeria ungovernable for Goodluck Jonathan. Now, we have someone saying, who is in the Senate president, saying that when the elections are over, insecurity will die down, making it look like it is a political tool. So can we continue to have trust in the way our democracy is run with that?
Well, we don't have a choice but to continue to maintain the trust in our democracy, because we don't. I mean, the alternative could be worse. Okay, the alternative to democracy is dictatorship and a military intervention, and we are not praying for that. So we'll continue to hope and work to sustain our democracy. That is the only option that we have. As for the build-up to the election, I would say yes, it's natural because of anticipation, and and also because the environment, the economic environment, is very hostile, and the political environment also is also not very clear. You know, the political parties are warming up towards their primaries. And normally, when they are warming up to their primaries like that, a lot of tensions are built, a lot of defections, which are taking place now. But by the time the primary, is over, the tension is likely to come down, because then we will know who we are voting for in public polls, and the political parties that will survive would have known themselves. Those who are not going to make any headway in the election would have known by that time. And I dare say that it's at that time that the work of the security people begins, because the tendency also that those who know that they are not going to have any luck in the election will want to, attempt to frustrate the INEC and other activities towards the election. But if the security, performs their duty very well, they should be able to suppress them and make sure that they don't disrupt the environment.
Okay, if you ask me, I feel that the issue of election should naturally not majorly lie with the security agencies. I feel that it should generally be a responsibility of Nigerians to be well coordinated, to avoid any form of violence ahead of the forthcoming election. And that's what can give us that credibility. So why are we laying more emphasis on security agencies? Why can't we be so prepared and, disciplined to say, look, this coming election, I'm going to go there as a patriotic citizen, perform my responsibility, go back to my house, and just be a good citizen.
Even when people are ready to do that, somebody must enforce the law, because there will always be people who have generally different opinion from the majority of the people. The majority of the people will be, will behave nicely, but those few ones, those miscreants that are likely to disrupt the environment must be dealt with, and that is the responsibility of the security people. I think it has been agreed over time that soldiers, for example, has no role during the election process. No business, yes, with elections or the conduct and election. But their business is to keep the environment safe.
Externally, not internally.
No. What do you mean externally?
I mean, they should protect the country from external forces. That's their major assignment.
No, usually we are lucky. We don't usually experience that. We don't have hostile neighbors, and we don't have external forces that will come and disrupt our election. Of course, except of the terrorists that we are already getting used to. We know that yes, they are going to suppress all those ones. But for elections generally, the role of the security apparatus is to keep the environment safe, and make sure that people are able to perform their responsibilities without fear, So that basically is it. But they don't have any role in conducting elections or in managing how logistics, are moved.
Okay.
Apart from protecting logistics, they don't have any role beyond that.
Okay, since we started the use of beavers, IREV and all of that, we have seen that snatching of ballot boxes has become like a thing of the past. I use the word like is a relative statement. And then so we see that in our lives with collation of results, like that's where the buck stops for them to give us a credible result, transferring of result to the portal. Now, if you look at that, and if truly we have gotten to that point in this country, so what kind of violence are we expecting in a situation like this?
Yes, the kind of violence that's normally occur in the last few elections, in spite of the electronic dimensions of result transmission, is the disruption of the polls themselves. You know, people who knew sometimes that they were going to lose in an election will find a way by all means to discourage people, to create fear in the environment. And that is what we are experiencing now. Even the transmission, the transmission of election, there's now, there are now cyber activities that could disrupt that. And those are the new kind of challenges to the security people now. So fortunately, we now have a cyber force that ensures that such disruptions are minimized to a very large extent. And I think our election will continue to be improved if we continue to adopt, the electronic and the internet dimension to the conduct, to the transmission of results, and to the monitoring of the polls in itself. And those are the new things that I think we are going to strengthen at this time in our election.
Doctor, let's look at it differently from just the political sphere now. These people are lobbying, so to speak, to govern the people, humans. But it looks like the humans are exhausted already. It looks like the humans have lost touch with a lot of things. When you look at how these attacks have come, how people have, taken in news over time. Attacks in Plateau, attacks in Benue, communal clash in Kogi, bandits coming here, kidnappers doing this and that. All of that have been recurring, aside other forms of crime that we've seen. Aren't there new alternatives to seeing politicians win the hearts of the people so that there won't be voter apathy? That is what a lot of people are scared of now, because the last elections had quite the rate of voter apathy. Lesser people came to turn out to vote. And, we need the people out there to exercise their rights by voting. But then, with the state of everything in this country, people are not even reacting much to some of the incidents that are happening. So how sure are we that these people would even come outside? Are there things that the people who are gunning for positions need to do to show the people that, okay, we have you at heart?
You see, you can't really blame the people because the experience had not been good, especially because of unkept premises in the political environment. When politicians are coming, they promise heaven and hell. They promise security, promise prosperity, but at the end of the day, none of these are delivered, even over the period, 4 years, intervals to election. So this has largely contributed to the apathy that we often witness during the electoral processes. But like you said, the politicians will only continue because that is the core of democracy. If no matter the outcome of an election, you still have to lobby the people, move closer to them, give them hope and comfort. And I think that's still a challenge, especially to government. In terms of security, also, that is right. The insecurity is not even restricted to some certain part of the country. Now, it has spread all over. And it's like the government have not really found any sustainable solution to the problem. So this will definitely accelerate the rate of apathy that we are experiencing. But we have like about 6 months to election now, and that's enough time to assure the people by the extant government, by the politicians who are going to be campaigning, You know, it must form apart from those puerile promises that they are making and they are not fulfilling. They should also provide assurance during the campaign period to the people and convince the people, because at the end of the day, if the people don't come out to vote, I mean, their efforts will be in vain. So it's a challenge to every one of us. And then, of course, to the electorates too, it's a challenge, because if you don't perform your responsibility in a democracy, it won't turn out well. That is the reality of the situation. It's the same old people, and they exploit the facts that you display apathy, you won't go out to vote, so that, we know that the people who are right, who are responsible, need the majority of the vote. But when even the majority of the voters are not coming out, how will they obtain such vote? So it's still a challenge generally to the population.
Doctor, let's look at the INEC itself now. There are hard questions in the minds of people. And I think people out there would understand the message when the questions are coming out at them. Can INEC really guarantee us safe and credible elections, especially in those volatile areas that we have seen over time? People have been expectant of changes, but do we expect that INEC can guarantee us, something safe and credible in these areas? Do they have contingency plans in these high-risk regions in case something happens? There's a lot of questions about the legitimacy of the final outcome, whatever it is that we are going to be seeing right there. These are hard questions that we are thinking INEC should help us answer. And like you said, there are several months down the line. But are they preparing for all of this? Are there plans in place? You have to have plan A to Z and all of that. Are they there?
You see, don't let us forget that INEC, the people in INEC are also Nigerians. They can only perform to the best of their ability, and especially to the best of the resources provided to them and how conducive the environment. Of course, we don't have any doubt in the competence of those people, those officials in INEC, beginning from even the chairman. He's a seasoned academic, exposed and experienced, from his past, from his antecedents. But he needs an environment that is conducive. He needs the necessary resources to be able to carry out his duties. Okay? So those are beyond them, the INEC itself. But I know that if the environment is conducive, they have the capacity and the capability to conduct, we have experienced it in this country before. We have not brought anybody from outside to come and be conducting election. We have had the best elections conducted in this country. We have had the worst election conducted in this same country. And those elections were conducted by Nigerians. I don't think we have hired anybody from outside. So it's all still remain with us and exactly what we want. If we want a very good election to be conducted, we have the capacity, we have the resources. I don't know the extent to which the government have provided all the resources requested by INEC to be able to conduct that election early next year. But that is part of the thing. If you don't provide the resources early enough, it could become a problem for the election. But I believe that if you provide all the resources required, we have committed individuals. And also we have committed community observers, and civil society, civil society community that could monitor and ensure that INEC perform their election. So it all now depends on the people and the government. If all are ready, I believe we can have a very good election in Nigeria.
Okay, Doctor, let's look at this. While the INEC chairman actually went on that courtesy visit to the IGP, Olatunji Diso, he talked about the need for the police force to carry out security risk analysis with essentials before the elections. He also raised concerns about the need for them to be proactive with security measures. He talked about including comprehensive risk assessments to identify flashpoints and deploy appropriate mitigation strategies. Now let's look at this. There are some places that we know that are usually volatile during elections. And so by your knowledge, expertise in security issues, do you think that it is right to still hold on to those old places, or need for us to actually follow this advice and begin to dig and look at other areas that we may not? Because if we look at the reports that, if we dwell on the reports we have had in the last 10 years, you'd agree with me that the rate at which digitalization took over everything, it just was like within a twinkle of an eye. So don't you think that we need to re-strategize, and with the use of digital equipment, discover volatile areas, violence-prone areas ahead of this election?
You see, the reason why the chairman of INEC is going to the police to request for that support is because INEC themselves cannot identify certain areas that election could not take place or where there will be violence. Naturally, it's the police that will carry out the risk analysis and advise INEC. But if they don't perform their responsibility, there is no way they could provide such advice to INEC. And if there are no reports of risk analysis, and if there are no intelligence, no tangible, election could take place.
So basically, what INEC was looking for was intelligence.
Yeah, of course, they require intelligence because they cannot just be deploying their staff, okay? Because if their staff are not safe in certain locations, it doesn't make sense to deploy them. Okay?
And that takes me into my next question about the use of core members as ad hoc staff. If ahead of the election, less than 1 year to the election, there are these reports, do you think it is reasonable to use core members, put them as risk? Because over time, I'm sure if we go and check, past record, we'll see how many core members have either lost their lives, been maimed, injured during elections.
But we don't have a choice but to continue to use core members because they provide the ready human resource personnel to conduct a very good election. One, because they are educated, they are well exposed. Compared with other aspects. Other people that will not understand quickly what is is involved. So it's not a new thing. Since the beginning of the NYSC, we have been using them, okay, and they have been working successfully. But what is the difference between youth corpers and other people in the population? If the environment is not safe, if the environment is not safe, it's not safe for everybody. That is just it. So the only thing is that youth corpers are only in a position where you can distinguish them from other people by virtue of their uniform, and by virtue of the kind of responsibilities, because they are regarded as more apolitical than other aspects of the population, okay? Because most of the time, they are not part of the environment in which they are posted to go and work. And so, they are regarded as neutral elements who can, perform in a straightforward manner. But you have to protect everybody, including youth corpers, to have a very peaceful election.
Doctor, it raises a lot of questions because angularly, we would say, yes, it's good to use youth corpers. But then, have we prepared them for these roles? When I say prepared, I'm talking about trainings. Not just gathering them just before election about a month ago and then you start thinking they would do that. How many of them do you think understand the terrain or the languages? They are not from there, yes, but they need to also understand the languages around them so that if something is about to happen, they understand what is about to happen. Several years back, a friend of mine was involved. Same time I was serving. He was serving somewhere in the southeast. And there were questions being raised at them, but they barely understood the language. It was a neighbor who rescued them at gunpoint, and they were conducting elections. Now, if they understood the language, it was going to be different for them. If they understood the training that they needed at that time, it would be different for them. But we want them to be responsible. Why not preparing them for that? Also, key in the fact that in the handbook, the leaders are telling them that if they are to be kidnapped, this is what they are supposed to do. Instead of protecting them from that kind of harm, instead of putting things in place to make them feel safe and secure. Don't you think if they are going to conduct the elections, if they are scared for their own lives before the elections, they will just bow to the whims and pleasures of whoever wants to disrupt the elections ahead of that, because they have not given them the required training?
No, I don't think INEC had ever deployed the youth corps to elections without training them. From my own past
Proper
experience
training, adequate
and
training.
observation. What do you need? What do you mean by proper training? You conduct election 1-2 days, and then that is it. And I know that from the past, because I have also participated in elections before, I know that there are training, that are given to them, and also, those trainers also insisted that no poll is more important than your lives. Okay, part of the training is that when your life is in danger, you know what to do. Okay, so I know those training. You don't need too much training. Too long a training to be able to prepare them. And I think normally a week, 2 weeks to the election is when they train them and prepare them. And they don't deploy them, individually to elections. I know that they usually deploy them in group of 2, 3, so that if anything happens, you won't be alone. Okay? About the language, I don't think that's a problem, because English is the lingua franca.
Are you sure? Because there are so many areas where...
Yes, there are localities where people are not educated, and those are part of the training. How do you interact with them? Of course, they won't deploy them without, attaching them to local people who are also INEC staff. Either INEC ad hoc staff or directors or controllers somewhere in the area who now have a direct interaction with the people. They only delegate, only practical things to the youth corps. Usually, they also attach them with locals who assist them and who guide them in the corner. In majority of situations, it works well, but only in troubled areas that we usually have problems. And we will continue to manage such situations because we have no choice. We cannot go and bring people from Ghana to come and conduct election from us. Okay, so we still have to continue to hone that capacity to be able to conduct good elections. And I think cumulatively, it's really getting better if we look at it, if we examine. Yes, Nigeria. If you compare, especially since the beginning of this democracy, you cannot compare the situation now with the situation during Obasanjo's time and all those do and die stuff. The environment is getting better, and people know that no election is worth their life. Even though that's part of the reason why we have our party. But again, it will continue to improve. The insecurity in the environment is aggravating. Yes, truly. Okay? But that's another thing that, it's the responsibility of the government to make sure that there are relative stability in the environment.
Doctor, don't you think insecurity will become the major theme of the coming elections instead of ideology?
Ideology has really never been.
But we understand when
Nigerian elections.
Some people pushed change back then.
But most of them,
ideology that they are coming with renewed hope for people.
The renewed hope is it any solid ideology? I think that's just a campaign slogan. We know when ideology is solid, and we have experienced it in the past. But in the current situation, all those slogans are just on the lips.
They're built on the fact that they're progressives. There's a different direction for them as
who are the
progressives.
Do they still exist? I'm not sure real progressives still exist in Nigeria. What we have now are prostitutes jumping from one one party to another. So you don't really even know who belongs to where again in Nigeria. Many of them are after their stomachs. They are really not, doing whatever they are doing in the interest of the people.
Okay, Doctor, let's quickly look at this. Talking about insecurity ahead of the 2027 polls, you have this report towards the end of March. The report talked about the situation of security in Nigeria ahead of the polls that is particularly more pronounced in recent times in states like Lagos, Rivers, Imo, Oyo, Cross River, and Akwa Ibom. Opposition party and politicians have alleged systematic attempts to disrupt their operations. In recent months, the media have been awash with reports of disruption of meetings, denial of access to public venues, and in some cases, intimidations of opposition party members. And of course, let me leave the others. So let's look at this kind of trend. Do you think this kind of trend is one that we should give attention to and begin to, this kind of trend that we have seen? Do you think is what us talking about security of the election? I think it's a normal trend during elections.
No, it's not a normal trend. Intimidation and the rest are not normal trends, And, those are the areas where I think law enforcement officials should come in. Everybody should be free to attend any meeting that they want to attend, as long as the legal meeting is be prevented. But I think it's part of the political gimmicks to prevent the perceived opposition from having upper hands. Like I told you, primary elections is coming very soon, and there are a lot of intrigues going on. Part of those intrigues is also to use exclude in primaries while other people are prevented from participating in the primary. So it's only the law enforcement that would be very active to make sure that people are not excluded, and make sure that election.
People performing their rights naturally have lost confidence in the election, process and all of that. So, to my mind, it might not just even be about violence. It might simply be, around the issue of, no dividend of democracy, as many will say.
It's mostly because of violence.
Okay.
Because nobody wants to risk his life for any political processes. They are discouraged from actively participating in the environment. In the political environment, even after the election. Okay, so we should not be discouraged by either violence or by the performances of the politicians. We should continue to perform our roles in order to improve our lives.
Then, away from now, let's look at the INEC chairman and INEC as a whole. A lot of Nigerians, especially the opposition, do not have confidence in the new INEC chairman. They feel that he's going to play the song of the ruling party. He will dance to their music and eventually do their bidding. Do you also see him from this perspective?
Well, one of the problems that we have been having is the selection of the INEC chairman itself. Normally the INEC chairman is appointed by the ruling party and confirmed by the National Assembly. But the argument also is that the INEC chair should not be appointed by the president, and there should be another mechanisms of selecting, a credible INEC chairman, maybe by involving the judiciary in one way or the other, or constitutional issue. And as long as we have not found solution to that, there will always be, opposition or doubt about the integrity of the INEC chairman that is appointed by a sitting president or an existing, who is a Nigerian. We are not going to import, an INEC chairman from outside. And just like we appoint people in the judiciary, they must also be individuals of proven integrity. So maybe we are not doing that sufficiently in terms of selection and appointment of such. But, but still, from past experiences, there's nowhere the opposition, we have never experienced it, where the opposition will always appraise the appointment of INEC chairman, support and approve of it, when they know that,
he mentioned something which caused quite the rush in the APC camp, and that was the mention of Operation Wet here. And I would like us to look into what happened for Operation Wet here as we start to wrap up with you this morning, and the lessons that we need to learn from it. What happened preceding Operation Wet here? How insecurity and political, collusions occurred, and the lessons that Nigerians need to learn from it as a whole.
Well, one of the sore points in the political history of Nigeria is the Operation Wete that happens in the First Republic, and that also signified the end or the termination of that particular political dispensation. But what I also know that we have learned little from that trend. The same thing that happened during Operation Wete in 1964-65 still happened in 1983 in Nigeria, that signified the intervention of the, of the military. At least this is the 7th year of our Third Republic. Maybe some lessons have been learned, but again, that determination to say never again had not been, agreed upon among the politicians. Okay, the politics of the winner takes it all, or the politics of force, is still in place, and if care is not taken, that could eventually signify the end of this republic if we don't draw tangible lessons from that. Politics of desperation is still, in place. And that is one of the things that we are experiencing now, especially among the opposition and the ruling party. Okay? Because the opposition believes that it is the hands of the ruling parties that is causing them problem. But the ruling party rightly are saying that, are we the one that will organize your party for you if you cannot organize yourself?
But even a blind man can see all the moves.
So, all those controversies
They
are
may
there.
not be involved, but we could see that it's like they're greasing.
But in that kind of a situation, you also need to provide evidence, and evidence that they are really overwhelming you, and that's why most of those people had been in power before, those who could not organize their political parties now. They were in power before. Didn't they do the same thing?
I'd like to ask you this one question before we call it a wrap on this segment. There are reports that President Goodluck Jonathan may
Well, I don't want to dabble into politics, but I believe it's President Jonathan that can respond to that.
No, it's not even his
I can only speculate.
Do you think that this time we need someone like him to come?
I don't think so. Okay. But I think the right thing for him is to continue to act as statesman, which he is doing. Because I don't even think he has a platform now if he wants to contest. So it's advisable, my own opinion is that he should continue to act like statesman that he is.
A gentleman that
Exactly.
All right, on this note, we want to appreciate Dr. Shola Ishola, who is a security scholar at the Premier University of Ibadan, on behalf of our producers and crew member, for coming on the program this morning. Thank you very much. We sincerely appreciate you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go on a break, and when we come back... You're welcome back. It's still AM120 on the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State. We have our second guest here this morning, and of course, he's a renowned public affairs analyst, Mr. Desumbo Badijoko. You're welcome this morning once again.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, our viewers.
Yes, we're discussing rising insecurity and 2027 polls. Do you think there's any rise in insecurity as we speak? Or as claimed?
Well, in the past 1 week or thereabouts, we cannot use the word rising. But if you look at the past 2 months, there was a rise in insecurity. It was actually heightened then. But since the president made that statement that some people are trying to use security against him, I just observed that there's been a change in pattern, which confirms that there's a direct link between insecurity and politics.
Oh, so looking at it, you feel that the president is not on top of his game or is not in charge?
I wouldn't be here and
He's
be
the
saying,
chief commander of the,
but he's not going to go to battlefield by himself.
but so he should be in control of
He
the
will
security
rely on
architecture.
the institutions, but just not be interested in doing the job. Some are just not encouraged. So when you have all that at play, then the president will issue instruction, give marching order, as he has always done, meet serially with the security chiefs and the service chiefs. But we just find a situation that while all those meetings were going on, we're not seeing much of results.
Exactly.
But since he played the political card, then we saw a kind of change in dimension. And of course, if you go back to history, just as the first guest said, it's becoming a pattern. And that's why I said there's a direct link between insecurity in Nigeria and politics.
So you are saying we are using it as a tool.
2014, Chibok. Before Chibok, there was Buniyadi. Those ones were massacred. Then the Chibok. 2018 again, eve of election, we had the Dapchi girls. You understand? We've been having that. We know the mass kidnap we saw under Jonathan. In fact, under Buhari. The moment Buhari became president in 2015, months after, we started the hype-up Wahala. Banditry began in the Northwest before we were dealing with elders in the Middle East and the Boko Haram crisis. So you find a situation where that there is heavy evidence of political undertone in the security situation that we are having in Nigeria.
So you are saying indirectly that we have weaponized insecurity as a political tool.
Politicians have done so, and they cannot deny it.
But then you would expect that as the GCFR, there would be a change. Seeing how all of this have played over time, that you would expect the presidency to be able to say, this and this should stop. We cannot continue to waste the lives of Nigerians that we are meant to govern. And, you know, the buck would always stop at his feet. It's like a football club. Whenever the team is not performing and the results are not coming and individuals are underperforming, the buck stops at the feet of the coach and he gets the sack.
Yeah, that is easier to see. But he too is a politician. The only grounds I have with him is placing politics ahead of every other thing, including if it's not politics, including insecurity. If it's not politics, or it's not the fear of politics that is slowing him down. Now, look at it. Security agents invaded the house of a former minister. They found ammunitions in there. He was arrested. He's standing trial. You know, some people are protesting. Some politicians are already issuing the narrative that it's a political witch hunt. Nobody is talking about the fact that weapons were found in his possession.
No.
Somebody wiretapped the phone number of the National Security Advisor. You know the implication of that. In a saner country, that's treason. It is political witch hunt. So when you begin to look at such narrative, and you are the president, and of course you are interested in second term, you will be wary of the kind of narrative that can give you a negative PR. That is the position of the president. I'm not saying it's right. I don't believe it's right. In fact, I don't like it. You understand? But when you have such things, such developments so close to an election, definitely caution will come. When the Chibok girls were kidnapped, what was the thing that President Jonathan first said? You know, he find it difficult to believe that how can that happen? You understand?
I mean, because it was strange.
Because it was strange to him. And it later became his albatross. So these are things that goes on there. You know, later he had to come out that there are Boko Haram in his cabinet because he couldn't fathom the fact that there are efforts being made. If you say Boko Haram, meaning Western education is haram, it's not Almajiri schools, and it's still not working, of course you would not be happy with that kind of development. So that's how you see interference, political interference, affecting the effort of the military.
Okay, let's look at security structure. In this administration, there had been shake-up in that sector. And one would have thought that this would help change the narrative. But it even seems like whoever is at the helms of affairs, even the military, the police, they are not even in charge. It's like there are some other forces that are stronger than them, handling the situation,
you know,
or battling with them.
That is the reason why we are still where we are. And you cannot, it's because of the way we have structured our security architecture. You cannot centralize policing, for instance. Insurgency is more of policing. You understand? A policing defect. A centralized policing system cannot really work. And obviously it's not working. We've been playing politics with the idea of state police. I've lost the number of times that this president have mentioned it. The National Assembly have spoken about it. The governor have played lip service with it. You understand? But everything required to have it is in place. The only thing missing is the political will. Because obviously the governors are not interested. And you need to have a majority of them keying in before you can have it done, because 24 states must sign in. And until we have that, we cannot have a state police because it's a function of constitutional amendment. And when you don't have state police, the needed community engagement that can solve this problem, because we are dealing with a clandestine kind of terror attack. You don't know your enemy. They are not in uniform. You are seeing a civilian looking so innocent. But the moment you turn your back, he's firing at you. You are looking at an innocent woman in hijab. You don't know you are looking at a suicide bomber. So when you have that kind of situation, what will work is communal efforts, community engagement. That's what is really going to make this thing to be solved. But when the architecture is not designed in such a way to make such things easier, then we will continue to struggle. And we are not really working on the triggers. You understand? Poverty, unemployment. These are issues. How much of effort are the governors who are closer to the people putting in human capital development or the overall human development index? How much effort are they using to improve it? You understand? The UN has done well to give us a sustainable development goals. And many of the countries, and you have a very young population that only need an enabling environment. Why is power so difficult to fix? That alone guarantees job that will engage these people. You understand? And you are really not going after the sponsors. For instance, I see him frequenting France. We have Francophone neighbors all around us. There's no way, and you have been going about, you are talking with the US, asking them for collaboration. These are people that can help you track the financial stream of this organization.
Let's quickly hang on there. You have talked about France, you have talked about the United States. Do you think the United States really wants to support Nigeria? Because one would have thought that if by the announcement, raising of a lamb by the US President, President Donald Trump, by now, we should have, I mean, issue of insecurity or terrorism in Nigeria should have been a thing of the past. Looking at their level of intelligence, looking at how strong they are with arms and ammunition, one would have thought that from, the first day he spoke, 2 months after, we would not be talking about insecurity in Nigeria anymore.
Well,
but unfortunately, it doesn't.
They have the strongest military industry in the world. You
Industry.
understand? Industry. You understand? They manufacture weapons. Now that's the